Welcome to Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson, the podcast where we head down the road of the supernatural and beyond. So, sit back and hold on as we take a ride together to what lies in the unknown and beyond the veil. Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson presents guest hosts, authors and investigators Dan Baldwin and George Sewell. Dan Baldwin is a professional writer, often a ghostwriter for other professionals. He has written and co-written or ghosted more than 50 books and has won numerous local, regional, and national awards. He is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, plays the Native American flute, and is an expert pendulum dowser, having used the pendulum to assist in finding missing persons for over 15 years. George Sewell describes himself as a cognitive philanthropist, active in all aspects of theater, his undergraduate degree in speech and journalism from Northwestern State University in Louisiana, and a Master of Arts degree in drama and communications from the University of New Orleans. As a playwright, he has written plays for community theater, college theater, and dinner theater. Vocationally, he is retired as a counselor, program manager, and administrator in the field of addictive disorders, including problem gambling. And now your host, Daniel Jackson, with UFOs, UAPs, pendulum star people, alien abductions. What's next?
Well, when I walked back by with a cup of coffee, of course, it was gone, and that's when it went click. I said, okay.
Right.
All right, I see what they're doing.
Sure.
They were giving me a taste of what's known as alien apathy.
Okay.
And that's the case when someone has an encounter or some experience and they react to it in a way that is far different from what they would usually do or would be expected to do.
Sure.
And that night, when I was meditating on it, because it was just such an incredible experience, it just nailed that, yes, everything that we're researching, everything we're doing, it is absolutely genuine, real, and being encouraged to continue. And I got a sense of a phrase to describe what had occurred that morning. And that phrase was diplomatic reveal. And I think that was a very precise way to describe what had happened to me that morning. It was very personal. It was done strictly for me. And that's something I thought back that when I was interviewing people back in the 80s and 90s, that for many of them, they felt it was a very personal encounter.
Sure.
And now I understood what they meant. So
Sure.
there was just a lot of information conveyed in just observing the sphere and in understanding that they were giving me a taste of how the communication works on a mental level. And it is very, very subtle, very subtle.
Yeah, but you felt it enough that you absolutely knew this is exactly what was going on. This is what was taking place.
Well, this is literal. I mean, I'm literally seeing it. I mean,
but it was enough for you to make a statement that you were like, "Yep, this is going on."
Oh yeah, 7 a.m. in the morning, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. There's no other variable than
No.
actually seeing what is there and being allowed to see it, not allowed to approach it.
Right, not yet.
For whatever reason. I can look at it all I want, but cannot approach it. But that was, that just really emphasized that the research in this book is very likely accurate and useful and certainly supported by whoever they are.
And have you had any other experiences since 2020, since then?
Not in a personal sense like that. What Dan alluded to about me and the orbs is a principal player in the Lindsay story turns out to be the spirit of a 19th century American actress, Kate Bateman, who's very familiar with all of the players, especially with me and Dan. And early on, Kate was wanting to get my attention. And the way that occurred, and still continues, is I had a routine of taking an early morning walk around Mike Woods Park in Bossier City. And it's at the end of the runway at Barksdale Air Force Base. There may be some connection there. But it was with one December morning, and the baseball field was covered in frost, and it was kind of pretty. So I took a little picture of it with my iPhone and put it up on Facebook as a scene on my morning stroll, and got some responses back. Oh, George, that's really pretty and shiny, but what's with the blue tennis ball? What? Went back and looked at the photograph, hadn't even noticed it, but hovering above the field is a blue orb.
Oh,
I said, what on earth? Well, that's got to be a lens flare or something, because the morning sun's out there. But I decided on subsequent mornings, I would stop at the same spot and recreate the photograph.
right. Try.
And by golly, the orbs kept showing up in the photographs. I don't see them, but the camera captures them.
Right.
And after 5 or 6 days of this, I'm saying, wait, something's going on here. So I sent the pictures out to Dan and asked him to take the pendulum, see what he gets, or what on earth is this? And he came back with the orb is a spirit. It's a spirit known to you, but not in this lifetime.
Right. Yeah, because sometimes they do come back and visit us from previous
And
lifetimes.
that's when I had a subtle impulse to look for 19th century American actresses.
Sure.
And that's where I found Kate. And that kept being reconfirmed. And in fact, just yesterday morning, took a morning walk, went down the park, took the same old picture, and there's a blue sparkly orb. I mean, she hangs around.
Still hanging out.
Oh, yeah. But one of our mediums did a formal session specifically to get her impressions of Kate Bateman and what Kate wanted to bring to this investigation and to the book. And we got a lively bit of information about Kate.
Boatload, huh?
Oh, yes, it was a full 2 hours. And the gist of it being, there's a chapter in the book that's called The Stage Manager, and it's about Kate and apparently her stage managing this entire project. From
Right.
putting the bug in Lindsay's ear, you got to get this out, you got to get this out. The bug in the ear, you need to call George, the thought, okay, well, you need to bring Dan in, Dan's got to get involved in this. Everything just clicked together so nicely that it was almost scripted. And I believe that was Kate's.
But I mean, that's cool to know that. I mean, that they really are aware of everything that's going on, not just,
Oh, very much
little
so.
bits and pieces. You got 2 hours worth of stuff. I mean, how often does that happen where, like we talked about earlier, the TV shows and stuff like that, they get a couple of seconds here and there and that, but you got 2 hours worth of information from
Yeah, that was just that one session. I mean, we had many pendulum sessions with Kate as well. So it's just.
Yeah, let me jump in with one of the advantages of the pendulum is, you're not depending on hopefully getting, a 2-second EVP or something like
Right.
that. You can carry on extended conversations as long as the person is there willing to speak with you. You can continue the conversation.
Yeah, I had an experience similar to that where when I was first finding out this is what I had a paranormal group come to the house because but the thing about it for me is they showed up in their van with their little insignia on it. And all I could think to myself was, man, I don't want to be this kind of famous because everyone's going to think they're living next to the Blair Witch Project in their home. But unfortunately for them, they were. And still went on for years. But they came with digital cameras and they took pictures. And every time they took pictures of each member of the team. Then me by myself or me with one of them. Every time I took a picture of one of those guys, there was nothing there. But when they took a picture of me, I had like 15 or 20 light orbs completely surrounding me the whole time. And they just couldn't, they were like, this is crazy. We've never seen this much before. And then they tried using one of those spirit box things. And as soon as they had me go in my bedroom and pretend I was sleeping. So I did. And I lay down and they come in and they turned it on. And as soon as they turned it on, it spit out words that said Wendy, Paul, Michael, Helen. It said special, energy, unique, light. They even asked the questions, and for 10 minutes straight, they asked the questions, and it answered every single question for 10 minutes. But the strange part was, they asked, one question they asked, they said, are you here to harm Daniel? And it comes through in that computer voice that says, no, we are not here to harm Daniel. We love Daniel. Daniel's light. Daniel is the light. And I was like, what's that supposed to mean? And so when we got done, they went out of the room and I go out. They're standing there talking. I'm in a huddle, and I said to my wife, "What are they doing?" And she's like, "I don't know. They're really discussing this." So they get done, and I said, "Hey, did you get all that information? That was really cool." And they said, "Well, there's an issue, Mr. Jackson." And I was like, "What do you mean there was an issue? Didn't you hear all that?" And he said, "Yeah, well, whenever we use this box, we can get it to say a word or two, but it never says sentences." And I was like, "But you got sentences." He said, "Yeah, we kind of got to figure this out. We'll come back for a big reveal later on." And they left my house, and they said, "We'll be back in 2 weeks." And I said, "Okay," because they had these little boxes, with wires on it and lights on it sticking up, and
Right.
they placed them over by the doorways. And they said, "Where do you have where do you get stuff going on?" I said, "Well, everywhere in the house, but let's go in the bedroom." I walk in, and every one of those boxes lights up and makes this blue noise. And I turn around and look at them, and they're looking at me like, and I'm like, "What do you mean? You're the professionals. Tell me what's going on here." But every time they walk through, nothing. So it was only me. But yeah, they said they'll be back 2 weeks later. You know what? They never came back.
Yeah.
I finally got a hold of them like 6 weeks later, and they said, I said, "You coming back?" And he said, "No." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because as soon as we got on your front lawn, the team broke up. They're too afraid to come back in your house." I was like,
Great.
"What do you mean they're too afraid?" He said, "Yeah, there was so much going on." He said, "It usually takes us 10 or 15 homes to get that kind of information, not just from one." And I was like, "I don't know what to do." He said, "I don't know what to tell you to do." It was just really, really strange. But I ended up finding 5 mediums, and they told me what was going on. But it seems like you guys are really getting, I mean, the consistency is the amazing part to me. I mean, but I'm used to consistency here, but I don't ever hear from other people getting this kind of consistency that you guys are getting. And I mean, everyone is really willing to play a part in this story that you guys got. So where did you move on from here? I know you're having these types of experiences, George, but what kind of experiences were you having? I mean, were you also seeing, Dan? Were you seeing? Because you say, George, you see the orbs, and
No, I
you
don't
saw
see I don't see the orb.
right, but you
photograph.
see them afterwards.
I see the photograph.
Yes, yeah, meaning they're hanging around you all
Yeah,
the time. So, what about what is your what kind of experience are you having, Dan?
Okay, right now I am experimenting with trying to make contact with the UFO occupants, and basically I'm essentially involving a system that Dr. Stephen Greer came up with.
CE5?
Yeah, CE5.
I belong to that group.
Yeah, so I do a meditation, then I go out outside, preferably camping or hiking by myself, but also in my front yard. And I just employ telepathy, send out very
Yes.
positive, loving messages and requests for contact. And so far, I mean, I'm not hitting 100% or anything like that, but I'm having, I will meditate, ask for a response, and I get a response. And some of the responses are pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
So that's an ongoing process, but that's what
Yes.
I'm doing now.
Yes, I get the same thing where when spirit speaks to me, it's telepathy. That's exactly the way it is. And I've had some experience as well with ETs as well. Like for myself, when I look up in the skies, I don't see the stars anymore. That's gone away now, like 3.5 years ago. So all I see is the moon and a blue-black sky. So if there's any other light that it's artificial up in the sky, I see it, and I see these looks like a letter Y, these like 4 stars and then another star. So it looks like a letter Y. And I'm told these are ships that are hovering above the earth and they are watching us. And in the very beginning of me being this, when I was meditating, I had a being come in, and he is an extraterrestrial, and he calls himself Charlie. And that's what he wants to talk to me as. And he watches me all the time. He's always in constant observation of me all the time, but I'm still not sure what he's watching me for, although I have been told by my archangels that he will eventually come here and speak with me. So have you guys had that other than the story itself with Lindsay, have these other beings, these other extraterrestrials, said anything of other than just from the story? Or are they trying to make contact with you guys in other aspects, just other than the story?
Well, to me, I'll speak first and let George take over. For me, there's obviously some kind of communication is going on, and obviously they are in charge. But it is going two-way, because they do respond to requests to show up. And in my case, it's they showing up in the traditional TikTok formations, or I've seen a black disc, or I've seen the white disc, but it's in response to a request. So there's some kind of communication going on, and I don't know where it's going, where it's leading to, but it's leading somewhere.
Sure.
And George is getting, tell them about what you're getting, George.
Okay, yeah.
In addition to the orbs.
Yeah. Over the last couple of years, when I'm making my morning walks and sometimes afternoon walks down to Michael Woods Park, I will set this particular location just for consistency's sake and take a photograph. Sometimes the orb is there, sometimes it's not, but also sometimes there are things in the sky that I do not see, but the camera photographs. And upon closer examination, it's easy to determine that whatever it is not a bird, it's not an insect, it has nothing to do with any of the aircraft at Barksdale Air Force Base, but it is clearly something there. And over the years, have captured numerous sizes and shapes of things in the sky that I do not see, but is clearly able to be photographed. So that continues. In fact, Dan and I were swapping yesterday the photograph where I asked him to take his pendulum and need to figure, is this a bug or is this a UAP?
Sure.
And jury's kind of out on that.
Yeah, and I would have to imagine that would be a little bit not always easy to understand. I mean, come on, we look up in the sky here. Everyone here knows what an airplane looks like. I mean, they're all kind of consistently looking the same, as opposed to what maybe black ops projects are doing. We have no idea what they're doing all the time, but the usual airplanes look like airplanes. But when you see something else that, doesn't have any wings on it, it's got to make you think. It's got to make you think really hard trying just to figure that out. And I'm sure with the type of experiences you guys are having, I mean, we know there's not just one type of or one set of beings that are looking upon us. There are many types, and trying to figure out what those different many types are has got to be a challenge for you guys.
No, my main question is just, as we discussed early on, what's next? Something is coming up,
right?
And we're being led somewhere, and I would like to know where.
Yeah, because I mean, you're like, so you had this experience with Lindsay, but now you're having something else, and she's being contacted for one reason. So what is the other reason that they're making a different type of contact for? What's the reason behind all that? And that's what I find interesting, because I mean, if they can already make contact in one way, why are they trying to do it in a different way?
Yeah, one thing I think, one of the reasons George and I were brought together on the Lindsay's case, I think, is just to get Lindsay out there, to give her the confidence to go out there,
sure,
and tell people, this is my story. You have a story. There's no reason for you to be afraid to tell your story. Follow my example. I think that's a sidebar now to George and I probably headed out someplace else.
Right. Why do you? I mean, there's got to be another reason. Do you think you and George were brought together just for that? Because I don't think so.
There's got to be more to it. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I would think so too. So here's a question I want to ask, because I've had an experience with these people since being here. And what part does the Men in Black play in all of this?
Yeah, that's for George.
I've had an experience with them.
Neither Dan nor I have. Lindsay most likely had some sort of communication with the MIBs with some very curious telephone calls that she received in her office, and we mentioned that in the book. But the impression we got from the Pendulum, when we questioned in a session about the men in black, they were not a threat to Lindsay. In fact, it was more of a protective measure.
Sure.
However that goes down.
Sure. I mean, do you think that's the case all the time with other people throughout this world? Because I mean, we do hear kinds of not so good stories all the time.
I have no idea. I've only acquainted with Lindsay and her story.
Right. Maybe it's just based on an individual case and what that individual was doing at that time.
I would think so.
Yeah. Yeah. I had my own experience. So the way that I got out here to Arizona was I was brought, I'm able to channel, and I was brought a message 4 years ago that we would be moving out west. And then a year ago, we were told it was going to be Arizona. And I asked Spirit through this channeled message, where in Arizona? And they said, you'll know. So the very next day I woke up, I said to my wife, give me a map of Arizona. And she did. She put it down in front of me. I closed my eyes, took my finger and started pointing on the map where I'm going to go. And I kept getting no answers all the time until boom, look down, Sierra Vista. And that's where we're moving. Unknown to me, I didn't know there was an intelligence base here. And then I found out later that at Fort Huachuca back in the 60s and 70s, they used to do experiments on psychic mediums. But my experience with the Men in Black was I was out riding my motorcycle one day here about 4 months ago. And when I was riding around, there was two people dressed in suits, and they were in a completely white SUV. And they followed me all over the entire town because and they only stayed about 2 car lengths behind me. And I was watching them. And I noticed, okay, this is the same car. What's going on here? And then I could see in there because I'd stop at a light and I'd turn around and take a look. And they followed me so I went throughout the whole entire town. Not only that I went throughout all the plazas in town, and I just drove around, and they completely followed me the entire time. The only time they stopped following me was I went on a road called Charleston Road that leads over to Tombstone. It's one road in, one road out type of thing.
Yeah.
And
been there many times.
What's that?
Said I've been on that road many times.
Yeah, it's a cool road to ride a motorcycle
Yeah,
on.
beautiful.
But that's not what I was thinking about when I was going down at this time, because I was like, what is going on here? But as soon as I got on the Charleston Road, I got down a ways, and they stopped. They actually did a U-turn and left. And I don't know if it was they didn't want to follow me down for one reason or another, but maybe they thought because they saw that I had a gun on my hip, because I was prepared. I was thinking, I'm going to go down this road. If they're going to keep following me, I'm getting off my bike and I'm pointing my gun at them. And but they just stopped, made a U-turn and left, and that was it. But that's the only experience I had with them. But when I got home, because I immediately went home, I started asking Spirit if that's what was going on. Was I being followed? And I keep getting yes. And then I also keep getting yes that they're monitoring me all the time, frequently. So then I talked. I saw some guy kept showing up on my Facebook page. I can't remember his last name, but his name was Paul something, and he works with people who do remote viewing. And I'm also able to remote view, but I don't have control of it yet. But I was asking him some questions, and then I was telling him the whole story of how I got here and all that. And he said, "Oh yeah, I know where that place is at." And I said, "Oh, how do you know that?" He goes, "Oh, because I worked there. I did those experiments." Great. Yeah, not so great. But yeah, that was the last time I talked to him too. But that was my experience with them. But I'm also told by asking questions, they said eventually I'll be picked up and I'll be questioned, because they want to because I have something going on with me as a medium that I know from talking to archangels that no one else has. And they say that I'll be picked up and questioned because they want to find out how I do what I do, and they want to be able to see if they can do it too. And I mean, that has me a little bit worried. So I make sure I have my firearm with me all the time, because I'm going out swinging. I'm not just going to let them do it. But so do you guys have other? I know you're seeing spirit, or you're having communication with spirit, and I know you are having these communications with what we would call ETs as well. Is there any other thing out there that you believe, or or anything else that plays a part in the story that you guys do, that you're having communications with, or having actual, I mean, I, I would have to guess that, or I don't know, maybe you guys, have you ever met anything in person, or is this as far as that has gone for you so far?
I haven't met anybody, any entity directly in person physically. They've been around psychically.
Right, right.
As,
So
as
kind
far
of
as
like,
encountering a gray or
right.
a reptilian or Nordic, to my knowledge, no.
No. And so do you believe, and like you said, the beings that had this contract with Lindsay, so it's always been the same being as, and there's no one else that's ever coming in as well as part of that contract? Or do you believe we have other contracts with other beings as well?
Well, my opinion is the original contract was set 4,000 years ago, and probably, this is speculation, probably through the years, different teams have come, and different teams and different individuals have probably come in and out to play their particular role and then moved on.
Right, right. And so since, I've heard stories before as different presidents too. We've also made agreements. Have you come across any of that stuff?
Just what I've read in the literature.
Yeah, we haven't explored anything of that nature.
No, so you guys are just sticking to, I mean, not that you need to, because apparently you're getting a lot of information about this one particular story and where it's leading also
Well,
for your own experiences as well, correct?
There's an interesting area we're beginning to look into. I don't know, again, where that's going to lead, but it's a common theme in Native American cultures and other cultures is the visitation of the sky people.
Yes.
What we're doing is obviously the Louisiana area is rich with the Native American sites. Arizona, Utah, New Mexico is just loaded with the stuff. So recently I've been going out taking my hiking trips or my camping trips, and I will go to a site that's historical, that goes back, 500 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. And we'll do a pendulum reading. Like I'll go to a petroglyph site or a cliff dwelling site, sit down and do my normal thing, and then have a pendulum spirit session and ask if, in fact, the sky people ever showed up. What were they like? What was your interplay like? Did you go up on the ships? Did you worship them? Did you trade with them? That sort of thing. And we're collecting a whole stack of stories along that vein right now.
And does that mean another book is going to be coming out?
That's Paranormal Pendulum Volume 4.
That's probably where this one's heading.
Yeah, because we had a session here in Shreveport. Dan was not able to join us, but with a group that's fairly constant now. It's kind of an investigative team, but we've identified a couple of people who were most likely sky people at a particular location at a certain time several thousand years ago. So we kind of got a little focal point to begin.
And do you guys think that there's many locations that these sky people actually do visit? I mean, we see the TV shows, anything that's got to do with Area 51 or Skinwalker Ranch, that type of thing. Do you believe that these guys are? I mean, I'm sure that it's not just us here in the United States. I hear about other encounters that they're having, especially over in other countries where this is more well accepted over there. I mean, so
in Australia, I believe the indigenous people have legions of story of interactions with sky people.
Right. What is your opinion on that? As why do other countries think this is okay to talk about, yet the United States is just still trying to hide every secret they can from us?
Me or George?
Either of you.
Okay, I'll rack it up to Cold War paranoia.
Right.
It goes back to the 40s. In other words, there are these, we have to protect our nation, but we've got these things flying in our sky, even doing flyovers of the White House back in the early 50s. You know about that. And there's nothing we can do about that. So we can't admit that we are powerless. So we make fun of everybody, we cover it up, and we ridicule the people who are doing serious work. I think That's the root of it.
If
Fear.
they were going to do something to us, they would have done it to us by now.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, yeah. So I try to tell people. I don't know if this is your idea of why we are here, but I try to tell people all the time that we weren't exactly born of Adam and Eve or Adam and Steve. I tell the people that we are born of them. They are coming. They have brought us here, and that's why we are here. We didn't evolve from monkeys because monkeys are still monkeys. So we are here of them, and then they are still coming here to check on us, to see our progress and see what we're doing. I mean, obviously we're not doing very well, because if UFOs were such a threat, don't you think we would be pointing missiles up into the sky instead of pointing missiles back at each other? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me all the time. So what is your thought on that? Do you believe that as well, that we are their children?
Well, there's a small chapter in the book where we explore Lindsay's belief that she has had hybrid children.
Right.
And that kind of follows that same line. And it would be perfectly sensible thousands of years ago for an advanced civilization to do what we can do medically now.
Right. Populating. Right.
For the improvement and enhancement of a particular species. So it's certainly logical, certainly doable. And personally, I think, well, that's very likely the best explanation.
Do you think that they had her produce these hybrids for the reason that maybe they themselves are no longer able to do this, and maybe they're just trying to enhance their own population as well? Or do you think it's just
follow
something?
That line of questioning specifically for this book?
Right. Gotcha.
There's let me drop in something real quick though. There is an interesting thing that kind of ties into the two-way communication deal with this. Lindsay, throughout her life has had enormous pain. She's had typical of the abductee, mysterious illnesses, mysterious pains, mysterious scars, and a lot of pain. And during one of our sessions, we made contact with the ETs and explained to them that what they were doing was causing her serious pain. And could, if they were going to continue, which she was okay with, but if they were going to continue, could they do it without pain?
Right.
And so we got a yes response. And what Lindsay tells us is since then she's had, the same repeated medical issues, but those related to the UFO experience are no longer painful.
Oh, well, that's good. I mean, that's good that that's one thing that's probably helped her, is, again, with making contact with you guys. Again,
the whole thing was stage managed. So there's
asking the correct question. Correct. Yeah.
It's uncanny.
Yeah, you got to ask the right questions, and we don't always know to ask the right questions, and that's why sometimes it's better to have others involved in it so we can get some different questions answered. And now she's no longer going to, even though she still has to deal with the same problems from the other encounters she's had, but hopefully maybe this time. Or have you guys ever asked to do that for the next possible time that she has to come here, that hopefully she won't have to go through the same type of pain the next time she
There's
comes
a little section in the book where she gave me a heads up that she had a visitation.
Oh, good.
And I immediately came up with a list of questions, did a pendulum session. Shortly thereafter, asked the same questions the following morning to see if the pendulum would have the same responses. And by and large, they were the same.
Right.
Also used the pendulum to do a list of questions that Lindsay had about the experience. So that's as close as we got to actually getting not real time, but immediate question and answer following any event.
Sure. Well, hey, I mean, it sounds to me that you're helping. You guys are getting a story from this, but she's actually getting help from this just by being with you guys. I mean,
that seems to be the case.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. We could all use a little help in this world, especially with a lot of things that we don't understand that's going on in this world. Absolutely. So I think I've taken up enough of your time, and
it's been delightful.
I've heard some really good things here. So where can my listeners find you guys? Where can they find all of your books? Because apparently you guys are really good at writing books. I've written one book, and oh man, that was a painstaking thing. But I'm not a good writer. I wrote a bunch of paragraphs, and my grammar is horrible. But I just gave it to the editor, and she turned it into a book. But apparently, you guys are getting some good experience with writing books, so I'm sure it's a little bit easier than it was in the very beginning. Where can everyone find you? How can they get a hold of your books?
Well, this book and in all of my paranormal books are available on wherever you buy your books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Smashwords, wherever you buy your books, our books are available.
Oh, awesome. Can you say out loud a list of all the names of your books? I mean, at the end of the video or the broadcast, we'll put links up for all that, but I'd sure like to hear all the names too.
Well, the paranormal books, I've got, the Practical Pendulum, the Paranormal Pendulum, Dowsing the Deceased, Paranormal Pendulum 2, What the Spirits Say. This one, Paranormal Pendulum 3, about Lindsay Higgins.
Right.
I've also got a book about my missing persons experience called the Psychic Detective Guidebook.
Wow.
I've got a book on cases that I worked called They Are Not Yet Lost.
Wow. Wow.
And,
sounds like you're not busy. That's for sure. That's for sure. How do you get in the time to actually write a book when you're actually doing all this investigation time? It's got to be. This is your life's work. I would imagine.
Yeah.
This is just what you do.
This is exactly that's it. I get up in the morning, have my cup of coffee, stumble to the computer, and start writing. And then on the days that I don't stumble to the computer, I'm stumbling through the desert looking for cliff dwellings or petroglyph panels or whatever, driving to see George over in Louisiana.
Yeah, I bet you have seen especially around in the desert around here, I bet you have seen some beautiful and amazing places.
Oh, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, coming from Delaware, where the only thing is you see is homes and then you go to the beach.
Yeah.
Every day I walk out of the house, I can't take my eyes off those mountains. There's just something about the mountains, something about this area around here. Beyond the other day when we were in the kitchen, my cats were playing with something and we walked over there to see what it was. And we found our first 2-inch long scorpion in the house. But
get used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get used to that or the javelinas or all the other. The first time I saw a javelina, I took a picture of it and I showed my wife. I said, look, here's some javelinas. We're outside in the driveway. And then a 3-legged coyote come walking up the street. I was like, oh my goodness. And of course, I ran over there and said, here, boy. And she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. It's got 3 legs. It's not like I can't get away. I got a gun on me, but it's an amazing place. The energy here is so wonderful. And the scenery here is so wonderful. So I'd imagine you have seen some beautiful places. Not to cut you out, George. I'm sure Louisiana is pretty nice, but I think I drove through there. That's about it on the way over here, but took the southern route. But
you come here.
Yeah, George has a number of books also.
How many books do you have, George?
I have several through the years. A couple of years ago, I wrote my first book on this subject, a novel. It's called A Turn at the Point. That included, in disguised form, a lot of the caseworks I did back in the 80s and 90s and whatnot. So that was a fun book. There's my signature book, Habits, Patterns, and Thoughts That Go Bump in the Night. That kind of takes what I learned through 30 years being a counselor that was effective with people making changes in their lives. So those are the two, and there's some others, book on poetry and stuff.
I myself am not a book reader, but I'm going to turn my wife on to all your books because she's going to read them for me, and then she tells me all about them. Yeah, I just don't have the patience to read a book. The only book I've read recently was I had to read my own book because I had to make sure everything was correct. But then it was hard reading my own book. But I get it. But,
well, buy me a cup of coffee and I'll bring you an autographed copy.
Oh, that
You're
would
in
be
the
awesome.
neighborhood.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, I appreciate you guys coming on the show today. I'm going to go check out this program on Netflix for sure because I want to see exactly what happened to her. Because I mean, just by listening to the stories that you guys have told, I mean, I know it's only a 20-minute program, but just like with me, when I see spirit, I get a flash of something real quick. I get a lot of information really quick. So I'm sure 20 minutes was plenty, to get someone else intrigued, and that's what my point of having this show is finding people who are just regular people who are having these types of experiences and having these truthful types of experiences, and not that just the TV shows trying to tell you one thing when it's not actually going on. But it's all for ratings and money. But yeah, I'm glad to have you guys on the show, because this is something that I have yet to have on the show in such great detail, and it's a privilege and an honor to meet you both and to have you both on my show.
That was a lot of fun. Appreciate it, Daniel.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys being on here.
Been fun.
And as I tell everybody, I hope everyone listens to the show and pays attention to the show, and I hope they find where you guys are and get interested in this, and pursue their own ideas of what they want to do in this world, not just sitting around trying to buy 6 cars and 7 houses and 10 boats, because who needs all that? There's much more in the world than there's just that stuff. So again, I appreciate you guys for coming out, and I want to thank everybody for coming to listen to the show, and listening to Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson and me, and have a great day. And as I tell everybody at the end of my show, be good and don't do any stupid shit, because and if you are going to do stupid shit, don't get caught. That's all. But absolutely, this was great. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
This was Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson with UFOs, UAPs, pendulums, star people, alien abductions. What's next? For more information about Dan and George, please see the description of the podcast for links to their websites. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson.